Hey guys, sorry I've been gone for a while. I had to go to the grocery store. The gaming industry has grown exponentially, becoming one of the most valuable sectors in the entertainment industry, with global revenue even surpassing that of the music and movie industries combined. For an industry blamed for violent outbursts around the world, that's pretty impressive. And how was this accomplished? By turning us into the Method. How does it feel to be the Method, bro?
Are you a meth?
In this video, I've compiled 4 ways in which the modern gaming industry has turned us into the Method, and how game companies have tried to swindle us out of money in the modern age, starting with online subscription services. Today, we are living in the age of subscription services. Want to watch a TV show? Subscription service. Want to listen to music? Subscription service. Want to get over that breakup? Subscription service. The point is that there's a subscription service for everything nowadays, and even the video game industry has fallen victim to this practice, mainly with online multiplayer subscriptions. For those who have never played a video game before, in order to play a game online with other people, you have to pay a monthly fee to Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft to use the internet that you already pay for on the console that you paid $500 for. Microsoft was the first to implement an online subscription service way back in 2002 with Xbox Live. Then Sony threw their hat in the ring in 2010 with PlayStation Plus, and finally Nintendo caved and created Nintendo Switch Online in 2021, a whole 19 years after Microsoft and 11 years after Sony, which isn't super surprising because this is the company that makes you use an app to voice chat with friends in-game, but I digress.
Are you a meth?
Online multiplayer subscriptions have made console gaming much less accessible, as video games are already pretty expensive at $70 a pop, and on top of that, people need to pay a yearly fee to play these games online, which is also subject to price increases. I used to be a PS Plus member back in the day when I had a PS4 and a PS5, and I paid a yearly fee of $60 to play my games online. But in 2023, Sony raised the price of PS Plus to $80 a year, and that's when I realized billion-dollar companies don't care about me. Silly me. Increasing the price of something like an online subscription service is pretty predatory. I mean, half the reason people buy video game consoles in the first place is to play online with friends and random people around the world. The price of these subscriptions can still increase, and people will still begrudgingly pay because what are you gonna do? Not play the online game that you spent $70 on and get a life? With Nintendo's, Sony's, and Microsoft's online subscription services, they each have different tiers to their subscriptions, which give you access to other perks besides online multiplayer, which I like to call some shit that I don't care about. If I were to subscribe to Xbox Live to play multiplayer games just using their basic plan, I'm paying $10 a month, which is pretty steep and not worth it. And to justify that price, I get all of this shit that I don't care about, like game streaming and benefits in games like Warzone and League of Legends. This is an objectively bad deal, which makes these other two plans look much more enticing. And since you're buying these subscriptions to play multiplayer first and foremost, you will be more inclined to spend that extra $60 or $240 yearly on more shit that you don't care about because these other options give the illusion of a better deal. To be fair, this middle deal isn't terrible because it comes with a large library of quality games. However, it's expensive at $180 a year, and you only have access to the game library as long as your subscription is active. And since you're only going to be playing 2 or 3 games at a time, you likely won't be getting your money's worth. And not to mention that these prices were raised in late 2025. Console manufacturers aren't the only companies who have subscription services in the gaming industry. We also have publishers attempting to swindle consumers out of their money.
And there's no money in here!
Like with EA and Ubisoft. I'm not even mad at the fact that these two companies each have a subscription service because, come on. Are we really surprised that EA and Ubisoft want to charge gamers a monthly subscription? It's like finding clouds in the sky.
I'm planking on 200,000 right now, no cap.
And who's actually buying this stuff? Everything that you pay for is literally shit that you don't care about. Like, okay, you pay these services for the game libraries, but it's Ubisoft and EA games, like who even cares? And not to mention that the games included in these subscriptions are literally always on sale, so you could just buy the games and not have to pay the yearly fee. I'm sorry to the combined 8 of you guys who pay for EA Play and Ubisoft Plus, but you're paying a monthly fee for games that are constantly on sale and for yearly franchise slop. Speaking of which, the yearly franchise. The yearly franchise. If you think about it, these yearly franchise games are basically subscriptions. I mean, you pay a yearly fee to play pretty much the same game over and over again. I'm talking about FIFA, Madden, NBA 2K, and COD. If you have nothing else to play, these game franchises will always be there for you and are a guaranteed waste of $70. I like to think of these games as, say, the Drakes of the gaming industry, because they kind of prove that people will continuously buy these lazy yearly releases regardless of quality. They kind of drop in their mediocre state, have one or two positive takeaways, and everybody moves on with their lives until the next yearly release. Oh, and I forgot to mention, millions of copies sold. The weird thing about these yearly releases is that their respective communities always talk negatively about the franchise they've been buying for 10 years. Like EA is going to listen to a plebeian consumer when their games consistently sell over 10 million copies, yet people continue to support these franchises by buying the new yearly release. And trust me, I've been there, but why is this? Like, how does this happen every single year? I think it's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, nostalgia definitely has an impact on why these franchises are so popular. Older CODs, FIFAs, and Maddens all have a certain charm and quality that's yet to be replicated by developers and probably won't ever be replicated in the foreseeable future. People keep buying these games because they want to see their franchise return to form. But like that one uncle, they always end up disappointing you. It's honestly a shame because Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2, and FIFA 14 through 17 were amazing games that warranted their price at the time, but as new entries kept getting released in these yearly game franchises, they became unrecognizable, soulless corporate games designed to milk you dry. Another reason as to why these franchises are so successful every year is because these games represent a more casual market, so to speak. What I mean by this is that people who play the yearly franchise games only play yearly franchise games and may not be super open to trying other genres of games. Obviously, this doesn't account for everybody who plays these games, but I would assume that a solid chunk of this 10 million only play games from EA, Activision, and 2K. There's nothing wrong with enjoying these types of games. I used to be a fiend for FIFA until I realized how low my standards were and that there were other games more deserving of my time. And if how I used to be sounds similar to you right now, just try something new. There's plenty of games out there that you might enjoy. The final reason as to why these games are so successful is because these companies have gotten really good at continuously siphoning money out of the player. Firstly, doesn't this look familiar? There's literally different tiers of the game to buy with all of this shit that I don't care about. So before you even buy the game, you're getting bombarded with more ways to waste money. After you inevitably buy the game because of your crippling dopamine addiction, you have the opportunity to spend even more money on microtransactions, where you'll probably end up spending more on in-game currencies than on the actual game itself. So, not only are these companies trying to siphon money out of the player by releasing a new game every year with different tiers, they are also trying to siphon dopamine out of the player by adding gambling mechanics in their games via microtransactions. When you combine these three factors, you get complacent companies dropping yearly mediocrity and one of the most predatory practices in the entertainment industry, period. On another note, why do these games always take up so much storage? I mean, 200 gigabytes for Black Ops 7, 100 gigabytes for 2K26. That's probably why some people only play these games, because they don't have enough space on their hard drives for anything else. These games are literally meant to rot in your library and get deleted when the next yearly release gets dropped, like with NBA 2K21. While we just talked about how yearly e-waste is hurting the gaming industry, let's talk about how one release in a yearly franchise, NBA 2K21, negatively changed the gaming industry for the foreseeable future. This is because NBA 2K21 was the first ever game to be priced at $70, which set the standard of game pricing for AAA studios. Even EA couldn't think of something that diabolical, but rest assured, they were quick to follow suit. When the $70 price tag of 2K21 was announced, it sparked outrage in every gaming community. So how did 2K Games justify this new price tag? When a representative was asked about this before the game's release, they said, "We believe our suggested retail price for NBA 2K21 on next generation platforms fairly represents the value of what's being offered. Power, speed, and technology that is only possible on new hardware. While we are confident that NBA 2K21 will be a monumental leap forward for the franchise and a standout visual showcase on next-generation consoles, we recognize that it's our responsibility to prove this value to our fans and NBA 2K players." So, were 2K Games able to prove the worth of 2K21 by being a leap forward for the franchise? Well, if by leap forward you mean leaping forward off of a 20-story building and landing in a pile of dog shit, then they definitely achieved that. NBA 2K21 currently has the lowest Metacritic scores out of all games in the 2K franchise, with fans citing that the gameplay felt sloppy and slow, that the story mode was poor, and that the commentary was mostly unchanged. Fans were disappointed that the first next-generation 2K game lacked innovation, despite innovation being the reason that the game costed $70 in the first place. The game also apparently had unskippable ads, which actually sounds unbelievable. Are we sure that EA had nothing to do with this? Since the release of 2K21, more and more AAA developers gradually started pricing their games at $70. Some games warranting their price, others definitely not. To be fair, not all developers have implemented this pricing, and there are still plenty of quality games being released that don't cost $70, but with current AAA games being more powerful and requiring more manpower to create, I wouldn't be surprised if all AAA devs make their games $70 at launch or even more expensive during the next console generation. With that being said, if you want to buy a game but worry that the $70 price tag won't be justified, I've created a system to determine whether you should spend the $70 or not, which I like to call making informed decisions. In order to make informed decisions, we need to ask ourselves a couple of questions regarding the games that we may or may not buy. The first question I like to ask is this a new IP or a new entry in a beloved franchise with a trusted team of developers that we know are focused on pushing the boundaries and innovating on past releases, like with Tears of the Kingdom or GTA 6? If the answer is yes, then I believe that the game will likely justify its price tag. Do the trailers do the game justice and make you not even think twice about spending the money? If the answer is yes, then go ahead and hit that pre-order button. Don't get caught spending $70 on Pokemon Legends ZA when 2002 called asking for their graphics back. Is the game part of a yearly franchise that has 3 different versions to buy at launch and published by 2K, EA, Activision, or Ubisoft? If the answer is yes, then do whatever you want. I'm not going to stop your self-destruction. If you've asked yourself these questions and still can't make an informed decision, then you can always just wait. Wait to see more gameplay. Wait for more critics and user reviews. Wait for the game to go on sale. If you can't make an informed decision, there's nothing wrong with taking your time. If all else fails, you could always just not buy the game or sell the 7 Cs if that's your kind of thing. If you're still on last gen, you don't gotta worry about these prices, but they are an issue on the 9th console generation. With the 10th console generation approaching, many people, myself included, have looked at the current console generation with the PS5 and Xbox Series X largely as a dark point of gaming history, almost as if the industry has plateaued in a way. I'll get to what I mean by that soon. But in retrospect, the 9th console generation has been really disappointing. The 9th console generation got off to a really rocky start. Microsoft and Sony produced a combined 15 consoles at the beginning of the generation, with 2 ways to buy them. You could either A, go to a store and get trampled by a quadruple chin maniac holding 5 consoles, or B, wait in a queue on Sony or Microsoft's websites where scalpers literally wrote scripts to bypass the queue and buy 10 consoles at once. I've literally talked to people who have done this. So, at launch, if you wanted to buy either of these next-gen consoles, you needed the luck of 20 rabbit's feet to get one at market price, or you had to cough up some extra money for scalpers' prices, which is what I eventually did and still hate myself to this day for. Even a year later, after the initial launch, there were still supply issues. I think I paid around $650 for a PS5 disc edition in 2021, which just goes to show how slow production was for these highly anticipated next-gen consoles. Also, just wanted to throw this out in post, $650 is the current price of an Xbox Series X. Fucking hell. When you eventually do get your hands on one of these consoles, disappointment quickly sets in when you realize that there were literally no new games to play on these consoles. At launch on PS5, you could play the Demon's Souls remake, Astro's Playroom, and some Ubisoft and Activision slops, so you got a real Sophie's choice when deciding what to play. And come to think of it, the majority of games on PS5 that I played were games that were previously released on the PS4. True next-gen console exclusives have been the most disappointing aspect of the 9th console generation, because at the time of writing this video, there are only 19 exclusive PS5 games that have been released, which is crazy when you can find YouTube videos listing off the top 40 PS4 exclusives. This is because most games released during the 9th console generation also got day 1 releases on PS4 and Xbox One. How is this? I thought that games were getting more power hungry, which was indicated by the bumped up price tag. How are our last generation consoles still receiving these so-called demanding games? This is why I said that the 9th console generation marks a plateau in gaming, as the 9th console generation marks the smallest leap forward in console generations that we've ever seen, and it's been kind of foreshadowed. The leap from PS2 to PS3 was huge graphically. Then the jump from PS3 to PS4 was not as big, but still noticeably better. But the jump from PS4 to PS5 is like jumping from the iPhone 13 to the iPhone 14. Sure, it's technically better on paper, but who cares? The leap in quality from the PS4 to the PS5, or lack thereof, is really characterized by the amount of people who didn't even bother buying a PS5, because March of 2025 marks the first time the active player base of the PS5 surpassed the active player base of the PS4, a whole 5 years after the PS5's launch. It makes sense. Why bother buying the next generation console when the older console you're playing on is still getting these modern AAA releases? The PS5 and Series X also contributed to the death of physical media, as both of these consoles launched with two different versions, one with a disc drive and one without a disc drive. It was sadly inevitable. With games becoming larger and larger every year, physical media formats like discs can only hold so much game, and producing physical copies of games adds extra costs when the full game can't even fit on the disc. This decline in physical media and increase in digital media has upset a large portion of the gaming community for two reasons. The first being with weird online store terms and conditions. With a majority of online gaming marketplaces, when you buy a game, you are just getting a license to run the digital file, which means that you technically don't own the game. You just own the right to play it at a given time, which can be revoked. This isn't the main reason the death of physical media makes me sad. I'm honestly not too scared of this happening. Like, sure, my games can technically be revoked, but I feel like the odds of this happening are about as likely as Man United winning their next 5 games. However, other people take this very seriously, with the popular sentiment being that if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing, which is why we've seen a huge explosion in piracy recently. The main reason as to why the death of physical media kinda sucks is because having a tangible item to represent your purchase will always be cooler than clicking on a digital file in a game library. It takes me back to when buying a video game was actually exciting. Opening up that bad boy in the car and looking at the manual. Now, when I buy a game, I just sit in my room in silence reflecting on the choices I've made. Physical releases nowadays just kind of suck. It's like, here's your disc, fuckface, now go and download a 60 gigabyte update like a good boy. The weirdest thing about physical releases is that they are cheaper most of the time. Like, when I went to buy Dark Souls 3, the price on the PlayStation Store was $60 for the base game. But when I went to generic game store, I got the game and all the DLC for like $35 physically. Overall, the 9th console generation hasn't been the greatest, not only because of everything that I've mentioned in this section, but also because of everything I've mentioned in this entire video. The 9th console generation has symbolized everything negative that's happened to gaming in recent memory. Overpriced online subscriptions, overpriced yearly slop, and games becoming more expensive in general have contributed to the 9th console generation's deserved negative perception. So guys, there you have it. Those are the 4 ways in which modern gaming has turned us into the method. Isn't it crazy how I didn't even mention mobile games or free-to-play money vacuums? Maybe those can make for good videos in the future. Moral of the story, buy a PC or something. If you're going to give any game company your money, it may as well be Valve. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.